Welcome to Unspoken Rules, Navigating Cross-Cultural Conversations. Today, we're diving into the fascinating, often invisible rules that govern how we interact across different cultures.
That's right, Alex. We're talking about everything from small talk with strangers to high-stakes debates. A classic way to understand these differences is the peach versus coconut metaphor.
The peach versus coconut metaphor. That sounds intriguing. Where did this framework originate, and what exactly does it mean for how we communicate?
It was originally defined by psychologist Kurt Lewin, who described peach as U-type and coconut as G-type personalities. Later, Fons Trampanars popularized it specifically for national cultures.
So how do these fruits translate into real-world conversational styles? Can you give us some examples of a peach culture?
Peach cultures, like the USA or Brazil, are characterized by initial interactions that are warm and friendly. People might quickly share personal information, creating an immediate sense of connection.
That sounds inviting. But I've heard there's a catch with peach cultures when it comes to deeper relationships. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. While they offer initial warmth, peach cultures have a hard inner pit that protects deep personal privacy. It can be difficult to access that innermost circle of trust.
And what about coconut cultures? How do they approach initial interactions and building relationships?
Conversely, coconut cultures such as Germany, Russia, or Switzerland present a cold, hard exterior at first. Initial interactions might seem less effusive or friendly.
So that initial perceived coldness might be a barrier for someone from a peach culture trying to connect.
Precisely. But once that shell is cracked, coconut cultures typically offer intense, lifelong loyalty. They invest deeply once a connection is established.
That's a huge difference in how social distance is managed. Does this framework also apply to more structured conversations, like debates or feedback?
It does. These differences extend to debate styles. For instance, Germany has a confrontational Socrates approach, while Japan leans towards harmony-oriented amai.
And how does this manifest in giving feedback, which can be a sensitive area cross-culturally?
In direct cultures like Germany, they might use upgraders such as absolutely to strengthen criticism. Meanwhile, the UK or US might use downgraders like sort of or a bit.
That could lead to significant misunderstandings. Speaking of personal sharing, why do Americans, a peach culture, seem to self-disclose so much?
Research by Joanna Shug and Masaki Yuki, with an update in 2024 and 2026, points to relational mobility. The ease of forming new bonds is a primary driver for high self-disclosure in the U.S.
So, historically, needing to make friends quickly in mobile societies fostered this hyper-disclosure. This all sounds like a lot to navigate in today's diverse workplaces.
It certainly is. A June 2026 Preply study revealed that 1 in 5 employees in U.S. cities now actively avoid casual water cooler conversation. They prefer task-only communication.
That's 20% of employees actively avoiding casual chat? Is this a sign of context fatigue, or perhaps a coconutization of the global workplace?
It suggests a growing tension between globalized digital communication and local cultural specificity. People might be disengaging to avoid the persistent difficulty of bridging these conversational divides.
Yet, a 2021 study by Nicholas Epley found that people consistently underestimate how much they enjoy deep conversations with strangers. That seems to contradict this avoidance.
It's an interesting paradox. Epley's study, involving 1,800 participants, showed enjoyment regardless of cultural origin, but the approach to initiating that deep talk is where the cultural differences lie.
So, while the enjoyment might be universal, the comfort level with vulnerability varies widely. What about new trends, like in 2026, regarding vulnerability?
A 2026 report from We Are Social identifies cringe confidence. This is an intentional display of awkward or raw vulnerability, a rising global value among Gen Z to combat perfect AI-generated content.
That's a fascinating modern twist on vulnerability. Whether we're a peach or a coconut, these invisible rules shape every interaction.
Indeed, understanding these frameworks, from Edward T. Hall's high context versus low context to the peach versus coconut metaphor, helps us navigate these intricate cross-cultural conversations more effectively.
Welcome back to Unspoken Rules, Navigating Cross-Cultural Conversations. Today, we're diving into how subtle language choices can lead to massive misunderstandings. Have you ever felt like someone was downplaying a serious situation?
Absolutely, Alex. It's a common cross-cultural communication challenge, especially when we look at linguistic downgraders. These are words and phrases used to soften feedback or describe situations.
Downgraders. That's interesting. What exactly are we talking about here? Can you give us some examples of these softening terms?
Certainly. In cultures like the UK or the US, speakers might use terms such as sort of, a bit, or I was slightly disappointed. These words are intended to reduce the intensity of what's being said.
So instead of direct, forceful criticism, it's more indirect and nuanced. But how does this contrast with other cultures, and where does it start causing real problems?
Well, direct cultures, such as the Netherlands or Germany, tend to use upgraders. They'll say things like absolutely or totally to strengthen criticism, creating a stark difference in how messages are received.
I can definitely see how that could lead to significant confusion. If one person is expecting a strong, clear statement and receives a downgrader, they might completely miss the true severity of the message.
Precisely. Researcher Erin Meyer, author of The Culture Map, highlights how these linguistic habits can be completely misread. What one culture sees as polite or understated, another might interpret as evasive or lacking clarity.
So it's not just a difference in style, but a difference in perceived meaning. The intent doesn't always translate, especially in professional settings.
That's right. The implicit message behind a downgrader can be lost, causing frustration or even significant errors in judgment when dealing with critical information or feedback.
This makes me think of that famous historical incident. There was a British Airways flight where an understatement became critically misunderstood, right? A truly high-stakes example.
Yes, you're referring to the 1982 British Airways Flight 9 incident. It's cited by Erin Meyer as a classic case where British downgrading was misread as a lack of urgency by non-British passengers.
British Airways Flight 9 and the year 1982. What was the exact nature of this small problem that caused such confusion?
During that flight, all 4 engines of the aircraft failed in flight over the Indian Ocean. The captain announced to the passengers that there was a small problem with the aircraft.
A small problem when all 4 engines had failed? That sounds like an extreme understatement to describe such a perilous situation.
It was, by all accounts, a profound example of British understatement. For passengers from cultures that don't typically use such downgraders, hearing a small problem did not convey the catastrophic nature of what was truly happening.
I can only imagine. Non-British passengers might have assumed it was a minor technical glitch, perhaps a bumpy ride, not a life-threatening emergency with the very power of the plane compromised.
Exactly. They misinterpreted the British crew's message, not understanding the cultural nuance that a small problem could refer to something as severe as all 4 engines failing. This shows the deep impact of these linguistic differences.
It's incredible how a specific choice of words can have such critical implications for safety and understanding. Beyond aviation, where else does this understatement trap manifest itself?
It's particularly prevalent in international business negotiations and performance reviews. For instance, receiving feedback like, I was slightly disappointed from a British colleague might be interpreted as mild discontent by an American.
So an American might think they just need to tweak a few things, when in fact, that slightly disappointed could mean the entire project is considered a failure or on the verge of being rejected. The stakes can be incredibly high.
Very true. The British tendency for downgrading criticism means the true severity of a message often gets lost when communicating with individuals from more direct cultures or those simply unfamiliar with this linguistic habit.
This episode truly underscores how those invisible rules you mentioned earlier dictate so much of our cross-cultural interactions. It's not just about the explicit content, but how that content is delivered and perceived.
Absolutely. Understanding these subtle linguistic cues, like the specific use of upgraders or downgraders, is crucial. It helps bridge conversational divides and prevent serious misunderstandings in our increasingly globalized world.
Thank you, Sam, for shedding such valuable light on the British understatement trap. It's a vital lesson in navigating the often complex nuances of global communication. Welcome to Unspoken Rules, where we explore the fascinating world of cross-cultural conversations. Today, we're diving into a topic often overlooked: the power, or awkwardness, of silence.
That's right, Alex. Silence isn't universally perceived in the same way. It's one of those invisible rules that can lead to significant misunderstandings across cultures.
So, what's often seen as an uncomfortable void in some cultures can actually hold deep meaning in others.
Exactly. In cultures like Finnish and Japanese, silence is considered a positive space. It's used quite intentionally to convey respect or deep contemplation.
That's a stark contrast to how many Americans might experience it. For us, silence can sometimes feel like a signal of disinterest or even hostility.
You're touching on a key finding there. A 2025 study confirmed that Americans often interpret silence in conversations as disinterest or hostility. It's a fundamental difference in conversational norms.
So, while one person might be showing deep respect by remaining silent, the other person might be wondering if they've said something wrong, or if the conversation has simply ended.
Precisely. This cultural disconnect can create unnecessary tension, especially in initial interactions or professional settings. These invisible rules really shape our perceptions.
It makes me think about small talk. If silence is valued, does that mean small talk is less common or even unwelcome in some of these cultures?
Yes, absolutely. For some, particularly in Nordic cultures, small talk can actually be considered a burden. They prefer more direct, substantive interactions.
So, trying to fill every quiet moment with casual chatter might actually be counterproductive if you're speaking with someone from a culture that values silence.
Precisely. What one culture sees as being polite and engaging, another might see as superficial or even intrusive. Understanding this is crucial for effective communication.
It highlights how critical it is to be aware of the underlying frameworks governing cross-cultural interactions. Without this awareness, we're navigating a minefield of potential misinterpretations.
Indeed. Edward T. Hall's high context versus low context framework helps explain some of this, where meaning is either heavily implied by context or explicitly stated.
And interpreting silence is a perfect example of a nuanced, context-dependent behavior. A long pause can be loaded with unspoken meaning.
Absolutely. It's not just an absence of sound, it's a form of communication itself. When you see silence as a positive space, it reframes the entire conversational dynamic.
So for our listeners, what's a good takeaway when encountering silence in a cross-cultural conversation?
Try to observe and adapt. Don't immediately jump in to fill the silence. Consider that the other person might be reflecting or even showing respect, rather than being disengaged.
And remember that the goal isn't just to talk, but to truly understand and connect. Sometimes that connection can be built in the quiet spaces too.
Exactly. Recognizing these diverse frameworks helps us manage social distance and interpret nonverbal cues more effectively. It's about building bridges, one silent moment at a time.
It's a powerful reminder that there are many unspoken rules governing our interactions. What's polite in one place might be rude in another.
And conversely, what might seem cold or distant to us can be a sign of deeper engagement or thoughtfulness in another culture. It's all about perspective.
This really underscores the idea that cross-cultural conversation is governed by invisible rules. We need to actively learn and respect these differences.
The research on conversational norms consistently shows that awareness is the first step. The 2025 study on silence is a clear example of this.
So instead of fearing the silence, perhaps we should learn to appreciate its role and meaning in different cultural contexts.
Indeed, it enriches our understanding of communication and helps foster more respectful and effective cross-cultural exchanges.
Thank you, Sam, for shedding light on the Finnish art of silence and how it contrasts with other cultural perceptions.
My pleasure, Alex. It's a fascinating aspect of how we navigate conversations and build connections globally.
And that wraps up another episode of Unspoken Rules. Join us next time as we continue to explore the nuances of cross-cultural communication.
Welcome back to Unspoken Rules, our podcast exploring the invisible guidelines that shape conversations across different cultures. Today, we're diving into a particularly fascinating cultural paradox.
Indeed, Alex. We're talking about France, a country that often puzzles those trying to navigate its unique conversational norms, particularly when it comes to giving feedback.
It sounds intriguing. Many of our listeners might be familiar with Edward T. Hall's framework of high context versus low context communication. Where does France typically fit into that?
France is firmly categorized as a high context culture. This means that a lot of the meaning in communication is implied, relying heavily on shared understanding, nonverbal cues, and the relationship between speakers.
So, if meaning is implied, one might expect communication to be more indirect, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like criticism. But I sense a but coming.
You're absolutely right, Alex. Here's the paradox. France, despite being high context, ranks extremely high in direct negative feedback. This is a key finding from Erin Meyer's influential book, The Culture Map.
That's quite a twist. So, meaning is often implied, but when it comes to telling someone they're wrong, the French are surprisingly blunt.
Precisely. Meyer highlights how this combination can be incredibly confusing for other cultures. For instance, low-context, indirect feedback cultures like the United States find this particularly jarring.
I can imagine. Americans, often low context and prone to using downgraders like sort of or a bit when giving criticism, would likely be taken aback by such directness within an otherwise implied communication style.
Exactly. The dissonance between implied meaning in general interaction and explicit, often strong negative feedback can be hard to reconcile for those from different backgrounds. It feels like a mixed message.
What about cultures that are themselves quite direct, like Germany? Do they also get confused by the French approach?
Yes, even cultures known for directness, like Germany, can find it confusing. While Germany values Sachlichkeit, an objective and direct debate style, France's high-context underlying framework still creates a unique dynamic.
So even though Germany uses upgraders like absolutely or totally to strengthen criticism, the high-context nature of French communication still makes their direct feedback different somehow.
That's it. It's not just the level of directness, but how it's delivered within the broader cultural context. The French directness is embedded in a system where many other cues are indirect, which can be unexpected.
It truly highlights the invisible rules you mentioned earlier. These nuanced differences can lead to significant misunderstandings, even when people think they're being clear.
Absolutely. This persistent difficulty in bridging conversational divides contributes to what researchers call context fatigue. People get tired of constantly interpreting unspoken rules.
That's a fascinating concept, context fatigue. Are there any current findings that illustrate this broader challenge in multicultural environments?
There are. A June 2026 Prepley study revealed that 20% of employees in U.S. cities actively avoid casual water cooler conversation. They cite a preference for task-only communication due to disengagement or this very context fatigue.
So, whether it's the specific paradox of France's direct feedback or the broader trend of avoiding casual chat due to context fatigue, navigating these cultural differences in conversation remains a significant challenge.
Precisely. Understanding these frameworks, like Edward T. Hall's, and specific cultural nuances, as highlighted by Erin Meyer, is crucial for fostering more effective and comfortable cross-cultural interactions, even if the rules seem contradictory at times.
Welcome to Unspoken Rules, where we navigate the often tricky terrain of cross-cultural conversations. Today, we're diving into a fascinating, and perhaps a little concerning, trend happening in workplaces right now.
It's true, Alex. We're seeing a significant shift in how people interact, especially in diverse professional settings. Conversational norms are evolving rapidly, influenced by various factors.
Indeed. We often think of workplaces as places where casual chat, the water cooler conversations, are a given, but new data suggests this might be changing dramatically.
That's right. Cross-cultural conversation has always been governed by these invisible rules,
dictating things like managing social distance or disclosing personal information. And these rules are under pressure.
So what's this new research telling us, specifically about casual conversation in the office?
Well, a June 2026 Preply study revealed that 1 in 5 employees in U.S. cities now actively avoid casual water cooler conversation. They cite a preference for a task-only communication.
1 in 5? That's a substantial number. It makes you wonder what's driving this avoidance. Is it simply disengagement, or something deeper, like context fatigue?
The source material indicates both. As of July 2026, new data suggests that 20% of employees in multicultural workforces actively avoid casual conversation due to disengagement or context fatigue.
So it's not just a U.S. phenomenon, but also observed in multicultural environments. This context fatigue sounds particularly interesting. Can you elaborate on what that means?
It points to the persistent difficulty of bridging conversational divides. In 2026, research indicates a growing tension between globalized digital communication and local cultural specificity.
And the episode description even raises the question, could this be a coconutization of the global workplace? What does that metaphor mean again?
The peach versus coconut metaphor, popularized by Fons Trumpinars, describes cultural approaches to personal disclosure. Peach cultures, like the USA, are initially warm and friendly, but have a hard inner pit protecting deep privacy.
And coconut cultures?
Coconut cultures, such as Germany or Russia, present a cold, hard exterior initially. However, once that shell is cracked, they offer intense, lifelong loyalty and deeper personal connections.
So a coconutization would imply that workplaces are moving towards less initial warmth and more guarded, task-focused interactions, even in traditionally peach environments like the U.S.?
Precisely. The trend of avoiding casual conversation could reflect a cultural shift. People might be opting for interactions that are perceived as more efficient or less demanding of personal context.
This really challenges the traditional idea of team building through spontaneous social interaction. Are we losing something valuable in this process?
Michael D. Levitt, founder of Breakfast Leadership Network, is a 2026 commentator who discusses the structural causes of workplace disengagement. This trend aligns with those observations.
So disengagement could be a key factor here. It's not just about how we communicate, but perhaps how much we want to communicate casually with colleagues.
Yes, and the preference for task-only communication suggests a focus on instrumental interaction. This means conversations are strictly for work-related purposes, minimizing relational aspects.
That's a stark contrast to some cultures, where building personal rapport is essential before any serious business can be done. It's a simplification of the social contract in the office.
It certainly is. This movement towards task-only communication in U.S. cities could be interpreted as a response to the complexities of navigating diverse conversational styles and expectations.
It sounds like managing social distance and personal disclosure is becoming more challenging, leading people to simply opt out of casual interactions to avoid potential misunderstandings or discomfort.
Exactly. When the invisible rules become too complex or exhausting to navigate, people might retreat to simpler, more defined communication boundaries to preserve mental energy.
This really highlights the persistent difficulty of bridging conversational divides, as the research states. It's not just a minor annoyance, but a significant factor impacting daily work life.
It makes you wonder about the long-term impact on workplace culture and relationships. Will we see less genuine connection, or will deeper bonds simply form differently, perhaps in smaller, more exclusive circles?
It's a fascinating and somewhat concerning development. The death of the water cooler might be more than just a figure of speech. It could signal a profound shift in how we relate to each other at work.
Indeed. This preference for task-only communication, driven by disengagement or context fatigue, is a clear indicator that the invisible rules of conversation are changing the social fabric of our workplaces.
Thank you, Sam, for shedding light on this crucial trend. It certainly gives us a lot to think about regarding the future of cross-cultural conversations in the workplace.